Welcome to another observability clinic, part of my tips and tricks session, community episode number 8 already, solving unique problems with unique solutions. Today is all about auto tagging, and our dynamite, our Dynatrace community rockstar that I have with me today is Chad Turner. Hi, Chad, how are you?
Hey Andy, I'm great. How are you?
Very good. It's been years since we've known each other, but we haven't seen each other face to face in a while, so it's really great that we have the opportunity again. And I'm really excited that you show us what you do in your day-to-day life and what makes your life easier with Dynatrace.
Yeah,
Um,
excited.
yeah. Hey, Chad, jump right in. What do you have for us? What is the fuss about auto tagging? What are you going to show us?
Yeah, so as I transitioned to a new organization earlier this year, LPL Financial, I was presented with two unique problems, and we'll go right into the next slide here.
Mhm.
And that first problem being, right, how do we suppress alerts for freshly onboarded entities that will or are residing in prod but are not live yet, right? We don't want to be waking people up to say, hey, there's a problem on something, but it's actually not live yet.
Mhm.
And then, of course, how do we group or capture those new entities in our Dynatrace environment? As organizations move to the cloud, right, and we're shifting left to empower those application teams to create their own servers, their own services, and automatically have Dynatrace installed. How do we report on that, and how do we group them together to say, you know what, here in the month of January, we had X amount onboarded, and we need to make sure they have management zones and host
Mhm.
groups and so on. So that's what we're going to be going into today with that.
Really, really cool. And I think, I mean, you say it's, unique problems, but I think it's problems that many organizations have, especially if you have, constant growing and changing infrastructure that you want to monitor. You want to make sure that you monitor and observe everything, but you don't want to get bombarded with potential problems that are not problems yet because they're not really yet live. I really like the way you phrased that use case. Really great. Yeah, let's dive into it.
Awesome. So the fundamentals of this is understanding the Dynatrace entity metadata. So that's what we're going to get into right away. Now, the metadata can be accessed through the Dynatrace API. We're all familiar, or we should all be familiar with auto tagging, but auto tagging can be limited in the sense of what is provided kind of out of the box in the UI. So that's where we leverage the API. Here, as you can see on the screen, we go into the environment API through the desired tenant, whether that be dev, prod, QA, what have you. And we're going to go into the topology and Smartscape for a given host. Of course, you'll supply your API token, and you'll then put in that Dynatrace entity ID. And some of the sample data that you'll get right here primarily is that first seen timestamp. So that'll be the millisecond timestamp of when Dynatrace first saw that entity. So whenever the one agent was deployed out and shown on that. So that's what we're targeting. That's kind of our core when it comes to these automatic tags for timestamp, and therefore the other use case of grouping them together and so on. So we'll get right into it, to a demo.
Mhm. That's the exciting piece of this whole thing. And the thing where people learn the most, just show me how it works in the product. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I've got a lot of this built out as a template for everyone as well. So we'll showcase that in the community, in the Dynatrace community, to kind of plug and play, if you will. So here we have a Dynatrace SaaS tenant, trial tenant, where we have one instance already up. It's been offline for 2 days, but nevertheless, we can still use this. As you can see, I already have 2 tags put in, kind of like cooking on live television, right? We've got some already put in place. There's one in the oven that's already cooked, but we're going to go through the process of submitting one as well. So we're going to click more, and you'll notice here, right, we don't have a first time seen timestamp or anything. Like I mentioned, that's strictly at the API level, which is what we were targeting. So we have here onboarded month being the month 03, and then onboarded week. Q1 to Q2 of year 2023, and it gives you the week, which was last week. We're currently in week 12 of this year. So how do we go about putting this into Dynatrace? And that is where we shift over to the API. Now, this is the exact same location as we were showing on the slides. We put in the host ID and we executed that. And you can see here we have a first seen timestamp. And we've got that timestamp of when Dynatrace first saw it. And then, of course, the last time seen, since this is offline as well. But we're more so concerned about first time seen. Now, doing this, there's going to be a lot of keystrokes. So I leveraged Excel to kind of, corral everything together and limit the amount of typing that I'm going to have to do. It'll be mostly copy and paste, but nevertheless, we'll jump over here. And as you can see in our Excel sheet, we have the year. That's what we're going to target right now. We've already got month, we've already got week inside of Dynatrace, but we're going to target year. And just to stay organized, I did list, right, the year, the start date. So of course the year starts January 1st to the end of the year, the 31st of December. But we need to convert this into epoch time. So I went ahead and put in the 1st of January at 2020, 00 hours Eastern time. What's nice is you can code this all out in an Excel format, copy it, and then we paste it into our epoch time converter right here. Now they do offer a batch convert, so you can go in here to convert a whole group of them as needed. And there's different, outputs that you can put in there. So it really depends on your use case as you'd like. And you'll throw that in there and it'll spit out to you the millisecond timestamp, which is what we're looking for. Jumping back over to our output. This is the output that we receive. So we've got the start and end based off of these two right here. And then I just go ahead and have a concat that goes ahead and targets these entities and converts them from epoch to millisecond, right? Just adds a couple extra zeros. And then from there, we have our string. So this is the string, the entity selector string for the Dynatrace API. This is allowing us to target a type of entity. As you can see here, we're looking at the type being host. And then we're saying the first time seen is this millisecond timestamp. So the very first of that year. And then we have the end of the year. Now, Dynatrace doesn't have it set up to say, do it from this time to that time. The GTE and the LTE, that's all set up to say, if it is seen at this time and in the future, or this time and in the past. So what we're doing is we're putting both in to say, look at this time in the past being, the first of the year in 2020, to in the future state from that time point being the end of the year of 2020 and back. So it's looking back at itself for the most part. And that is also this here. So we've got start and end. I put in a little thing, don't touch this stuff, because that is also, the basis of the concat to give you this output. If you're not familiar with Excel, you'll notice here, right, we have a text join and it is a formula. So the best way is just to copy this stuff, as I mentioned, in the Excel sheet, copy it, and then paste it as a value. And that'll actually give you the textual value that's being shown. And at this point, it becomes relatively quite easy, especially if you're experienced with the API. So I'm going to jump over to my Notepad++. And as you can see, I've already got a lot of this filled out. We have the onboarded year, the name of our tag key that we're doing, and then our key value we will be providing is, right, 2024, whatever the said year is. And we go all the way from 2020 to 2024. And we're just pasting in that first time seen stamp for each of those ranges. So 2024 is the beginning of next year to the end of next year, right? Same with 2023, and that's all through that Excel file. The only thing that you really have to change, and you'll notice here, is we have \quote host \quote. Excel can get a little bit finicky with backslashes and stuff, so I just left it out, said host, and then it's as simple as, you know, doing a Control F, finding and replacing that, and putting it to, you know, the desired entity type of \quote, entity \quote. And once you have that, it, you know, once again comes down to copying and pasting. I tend to like to use the blue little ball to keep me on track as to where I was. And you'll copy this and you'll just paste it in on the row below. I typically like to have it in a complete other tab, because then I'll do a Control F of, right, find and replace hosts and replace it with our process group instances. So we're going through the layers of Dynatrace to say, let's tag the hosts, because the hosts can show up individually. Let's tag the processes, because they could show up individually. And then let's tag the services as well, because they can show up individually, especially as you move to cloud. So once we have that all typed out, we'll go ahead and do copy. And we'll go back into our API and we'll paste that in. I think it is this one, yes. So once again, if you're not familiar with the API, you will navigate to the configuration API. There's 3 options here, but we'll do configuration API. And we're going to go into the automatically applied tags. Create by posting, creating a new auto tag, and that's going to create your key value pair if you have a value, mainly the keys, but we'll go ahead and paste that in. And you can do a once over if you like, you know, make sure everything seems to be in place, but we're going to go ahead and click execute. Here's the response. We can scroll down and we can see that it was posted successfully without any problem. So let's shift over to our UI here. We'll give this a refresh. It should be quite instant. Yes, and now we have our onboarded year of 2023, as we can see here, was onboarded last week. So now that we have our tags, we can then do some pretty cool things. So to solve that first use case of, you know, how do I suppress this entity? You know, it's great we have the tags. That was one of the big stepping stones in order to accomplish this. The next step is to create a maintenance window for that. I have seen organizations that put in a manual or an automatic tag for a given entity to say, you know, this is in maintenance mode or this is suppressed. But you always have to go back and say, let me remove that when this goes live. You know, if it's in the middle of the night, midnight, I personally don't want to get up. You know, as a father with an 11-month-old, sleep is critical. So, you know, I want it to be automated as much as possible. And that's where these tags come into play. So shifting over to maintenance windows. Like I said, the beauty of cooking on TV, we've got most of this built in already for us. So we've got the filters looking at the onboarded week and then the onboarded month. We could also add in another filter to say year. Now, it really depends on how narrow you want your time frame to be in your entities. We also incorporate host group, because keep in mind, when you're setting this, this is going to be every entity in your environment with these tags. So you have to be cognizant of that. Unfortunately, in this little demo, we don't have a host group set, so I won't be able to show you that, but you would create a host group tag as well. That can be done through the UI, and that's listed in our documentation that's posted on the Dynatrace community. But nevertheless, we are looking at the narrowest, most granular segment of the time frame selector being the week of week 11. As I mentioned before, we're looking at Q1 to Q2. That's primarily because Dynatrace has a rule limit of 150 rules. And when you multiply 52 weeks in a year times 3 entities, you get 156. So we're just over that. And I didn't want to separate out an entity, so we just said, let's cut the year in half. So you also have to be cognizant, right? Week 41 does not show up in Q1 or Q2. So you have to make sure you set the right tags for this as well. I'm going to go ahead and just enable this. We'll save the changes. And we'll refresh this page. And we can now see that maintenance window is set. And the beauty of this is, as you're onboarding your entities, right, your application team says, hey, I've got this host for easy travel. I want it onboarded this week. You could then say, okay, let me look at my workload. I can facilitate that this week, or I could facilitate it next week. So I know the onboarding week is going to be either the 12th or the 13th, being this week or next. And you can set a maintenance window to incorporate that. Now, if you have multiple weeks that you're doing it, you can set multiple tags. If there's multiple host groups, you can set multiple host groups. So it's one maintenance window suppressing everything. And then, right, the beauty of it too is I can set the expiration of that maintenance window. So if my app team says, hey, midnight of next week, we're going live with this and I want to be alerted on it, I don't have to remove tags or take it out of, some type of maintenance window that's all encompassing. It's going to expire it by itself.
Hey, Chad, I wanna quickly recap on what I have learned, right? Kind of putting myself into the shoes of somebody that has similar use cases or a similar use case. So first of all, and I told you this in preparation of this meeting, I did not know that we have the ability that we have the data of the first scene and last scene, and that you can then actually use it in an entity selector, which I thought is pretty sweet. So basically what you're doing, you're creating entity selectors that say, hey, any host, process group, or service that has been first seen within this and this time period, right? I want to detect them, and then you can use the same entity selector for these automated tagging rules. So automatically, every time, perfect. Automatically, when a new entity gets onboarded, a new host is spun up in a particular week on a particular day, it automatically gets a tag that says first seen onboarded this year, 2023, in what do we have? March, right? That would be Q1, and you also had the week, and then I think this is the challenge that I really like about what you're solving with this is you can allow people to say, hey, you can onboard whatever you want in that week. And I want to make sure that whatever you do with these systems, because as you onboard, things will be flaky. But I want Dynatrace to monitor your system, but I don't want to alert on it while you're still onboarding it. And this is where the maintenance windows comes in and say, hey, okay, everything that gets onboarded in this week, and we are in that week, stay quiet, because I know you're currently figuring out your configuration. So what's really great is you've shown us what type of metadata we have on the entities. Like the first scene is a really great piece of metadata that we can also use in entity selectors. So show me or filter, or however you use an entity selector, filter on when an entity was first seen to cut it down on particular time frames. Then you use this for automated tags, and then you use the tags for your maintenance windows. It's really beautiful. It's a great tip and trick.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. And you can also put your granularity as much as you want. So if you want it to be week, you can do an individual week. But let's say you're onboarding something throughout the month. You can just go ahead and say it's going to be, the month of January or the month of November, and effectively suppress everything that gets onboarded for your said host group. I would definitely include that because we don't want to suppress everything for a given month. But then it will expire when it's ready. And even if it was a year too, right? We're redoing our easy travel to be super easy travel. And it's gonna, take the course of 2023. So we're gonna be onboarding it throughout the year. Just set that blanket maintenance window, and everything for that host group for that given year, you just exclude month and week will be suppressed. And you don't have to worry about teams saying, your knock, how come I was alerted on this and there's no run book, there's no information about it? Is this legit? I just woke up 5 teams to go over something that technically wasn't in production. So,
and then you showed us your kind of approach to the problem. You used Excel to calculate the timestamps, right? Because we are using epoch timestamps here in milliseconds, and you just used Excel. If somebody doesn't want to use Excel, obviously you can code this in whatever language you like. You could also probably create a Python script or a Bash script or whatever. But I think it was really nice and visual how you showed how you started from a human readable time frame in Excel, converting it to an epoch, converting it to epoch in milliseconds that we need, and then you are automatically letting Excel create the entity selector for the time range. So it was really nice.
Yeah, I tried to cut down the amount of work. I didn't want to copy and paste all of these milliseconds over and over again in here. But yeah, and if you have multiple tenants, right, you're maybe isolated between prod and non-prod or even more. Once you create your first set of batches, if you will, for week, month, year, you can then just roll those right out into your other tenants. You can do a get command through the API for those automatic tag keys, and then you can post them right into prod, non-prod, what have you, and you don't have to redo anything. It's quite simplistic in that manner.
Cool.
And we'll jump now back to the slides now that we're done with that demo. And we're going to go into that second use case, right? So leveraging the entity selector for the automatic tagging. So a big thing too is, how do I report on certain constructs? How many things were onboarded in January? And now that we have those tags, you can, really maximize what you can do with that. So for example, if we jump over to hosts, now granted, we only have one host in this environment, so it's going to be really easy. Oh, we got another one that popped in while we were doing this demo, and we can actually see, right? It was onboarded this month, this week of this year. So we could go ahead and do hosts and say, show me all of my hosts that have been onboarded in month 3. Right? And then therefore we would see those. More importantly, you could add in another set of tags to get more granular to then say week 11. And now we see that 1 instead of the 2. And this could be also populated on a dashboard, which we have here to say, right, active as of today. We've got 2 that are active in our environment. None were here in 2020. 2021, 2022, and then here we have the 2 in 2023 that we're seeing, given we're looking at the last 7 days. So you could expand that out to the last 365 and get an accurate reporting to say, how many hosts, services, databases, and processes were showing up and are present in that time frame analysis or that tagging schema. So can be very, very useful. And that's how we also kind of roll into grouping them into newly onboarded entities. Very similar to how we did the maintenance window. You could create a management zone that looks at the same setup. So you could say management zone, and we'll call this new hosts in March. And we can add in our rule. We don't need to use the entity selector because our tags already exist. And we can say hosts, add a condition, host tags equal, and you would then select your data here. So we'll go with month. It automatically pulled up month, and then we'll do colon month 3. And we could preview the entities just to be sure, right? And there's our demo one right there. So very, very useful. We could save those changes, and we could make a management zone that encompasses said entities.
It's really powerful, and it just shows how great the whole concept is that we have with the entity selector, the tagging, and that we can automatically create tags based on metadata, based on rules, and yeah, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it was a very complex issue to say, how do we do this, especially as organizations move to cloud, because you only know what you know, right? If a separate team is making more instances, how can I ensure that they are being onboarded correctly, right? That they have our standard host group, or even following our host group naming convention. Hopefully there's automation, which takes humans out of the mix on that. But if not, it is a way to audit, and also a very nice way to report to senior leadership to say, our Dynatrace footprint has grown X amount over X amount of time. And as I mentioned before, we've got our community posts, and then, of course, our time converting tools. And we'll jump real quick over to the community post and showcase that. So here is setting that onboarding date stamp. And it goes through the same methodology of the Excel file, the Notepad++ method. As you can see, right, we're finding and replacing. And then we have our key value pair kind of laid out. This is how we leverage it. You can definitely leverage it however you'd like. If you want to spell out year and then the value, you could definitely do that. And then the results. And you can see here where we're leveraging a host group as well. And we have a quick link to go right into the maintenance windows. And we have the JSONs for you to
nice.
utilize. So
you don't have to recreate them themselves.
Yes, there was a typo which I found and I corrected, but I would double check it just in case. Here in year, you'll notice these two values are the same. So it is wrong in this picture. I did make the correction. It should also be present in these templates that we have for you as well. So if you want to plug and play, it is there. You can grab them. And we'll jump over to the maintenance window one as well. Setting that maintenance window. Same layout. We've got our key value pair, and kind of going through the process of doing that.
Awesome. Well documented, and obviously people have now seen it as well in the video. I assume the video will also be cross linked between the blog post here.
Yes, you know it.
Yeah.
And we also include the JSON for posting a maintenance window. So
cool.
In the mindset of maybe a CI/CD pipeline, if you want to incorporate those teams posting their own maintenance window, that can be facilitated as well. So easy travel, we're going to be doing a release, I want to suppress everything, you could incorporate that as well. Now, granted, we're looking at first time scene, so if you want to have an automation for your team to say, hey, I'm going to be onboarding new entities in prod come this coming week, it can be defined out here as well.
Maybe one additional thought to this, or maybe some next gen of this could be to provide Monaco scripts, right? Monitoring as code, and just not in a JSON format for the API call directly, but in a declarative way using Monaco.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless.
Yes, yeah. Cool. And then I know you have in the slides, we put them into the kind of supporting slides, exactly. Yeah. So all this stuff also there in the slides. Folks, if you want to have the slides, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can also go over to Dynatrace University, where you will also find the tips and tricks. And in those tips and tricks videos, just switch to the resource tab and you will find the PowerPoints to download. Awesome. Again, I always say I am the one that is learning the most out of these clinics that we do. It's so great to see what our users are doing and what our champions are doing, and it's even better to see that you're willing to share. Thank you so much for going through the additional effort on, kind of setting up the whole thing in a separate environment so you can show it to us without any concerns about sharing any confidential information from your own environment. I know you've implemented all of this in your organization, but folks, if you watch this, right, you could see it was easily replicable in any environment, like Chad did on this demo tenant that we gave him. So thank you so much. It was really cool.
You're very welcome. And if anybody runs into any snags, you can definitely hit me up through the community on those posts as well.
Yeah. That's a true dynamite, helping the community with content and also with answers to questions. All right, with this, I want to close the recording. I say thank you and see you for the next one. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Andy.